should we start?
And away we go.
Away we go.
The Siren song of Saidin.
Yes! Can we talk about like where that inspiration came from, like the Siren song of Saidin being what it is, like from the book perspective? Because I think that's kind of where we were going to start anyway. Yeah.
We're in our reread of The Great Hunt, and we've got obviously now Rand coming into his own and hesitantly learning to channel.
Mm-hmm.
And we're getting all of this new information about what it feels like to be Rand in this position.
Mm-hmm.
Within the books, we don't get anything like this up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
On the TV show, we've gotten little tidbits here and there through flashbacks mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not given what it's like in words.
Mm-hmm.
It's all done visually for the most part.
Mm-hmm. And as beautifully as that visual has been done, there's a reason why Jordan is a best-selling author. And it's because he can give so much emotion to what's happening to the person on the inside. And I know last week, one of our chapters was titled Saidin in The Great Hunt. And I'm going to be a bit geeky this week and read straight from the book. So in this particular chapter, Rand and the people that he is traveling with, they come across this giant statue that's being dug out of the ground. It's holding a crystal in its hand, and it is beckoning to Rand, like he feels drawn towards it. He's not quite sure why. But as he approaches, he finds himself seeking the void, which is what he does in the books in order to be able to like use his sword forms, archery, things like that. But it's also turned into this way for him to access Saidin.
He's been taught since he was a child from his father. It's almost like a form of meditation, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like a coincidence, like, good thing he already had this ingrained inside of him.
Yes. It's very similar to the technique that gets taught to women who can channel. Like they're instructed to create a rosebud and
in their mind.
Yeah. and pour all of their everything into it until they are the rosebud. And for Rand, it's the flame and the void until he is the flame and the void. But in this case, and the thought came that if he sang the song Saidin sang, that the huge stone face would open its mouth and sing with him and with Saidin all one. Kind of like connected in this moment as well to that and to the void. Later in the section, it says, he tried to push the void away. It held like granite. He floated in an emptiness as hard as stone. The song of Saidin, the song of the sphere. He could feel them quivering along his bones. And I love that because these are things that we don't get in the TV series. We can see the actor Rand acting as much as he can towards the end.
Yes.
Yeah, he's very much, but to like have these words to put it into something that you can kind of feel inside you it's just different.
It's nice because it's in his own words.
Yes, that's true.
With the TV show, we're kind of stripped of this.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about this chapter is Rand isn't even necessarily trying to channel. It's coming to him instinctively.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not quite sure what to make of it.
Yeah. He gets kind of pulled into this. And chapter 20, Saidin in The Great Hunt, is maybe one of my favorite chapters. It's one that always sticks out to me, that giant statue, this moment of Rand connecting with Saidin, connecting with himself, and later we find out in some ways connecting to his past as well. It's just this incredible moment, especially when you go like further into the books and then come back and reread this and are like, oh my gosh. So that was
This is one of those really beautifully descriptive chapters where if you're reading for the prose and you like the beauty of it all, this is a really good chapter to pick up and look into.
Yeah, definitely. Go back and reread it if you haven't. Go race through the Great Hunt Eye
Get
of the
there.
World, and then into the Great Hunt and catch up with us.
So what are the consequences of being a man who can channel? If we're going from the show perspective, we get that opening scene with the Red Aja
Mm-hmm.
gentling a man. And they
Mm-hmm.
kind of do a little gotcha moment where he's talking to someone,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's later revealed that he was having an imaginary conversation with someone who wasn't really there.
Yep.
And she says the madness has already taken him. And this is what awaits every single man who can channel. The question isn't if, it's when. So we've got, from Tom's perspective, in the books and in the show, he has a nephew named Owen. In the books, we're not given such a graphic description of what happens to Owen, but in the TV show, he says Owen found out
Uh,
he could channel and just kills himself at the dinner table, basically, with a
well,
knife.
after he'd been gentled by the Red
Right,
Aja. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, being gentled, we see from this perspective that it's really kind of like this deep, really dark form of losing your sense of self,
Mm-hmm.
essentially, and being cut off from the one power leaves people of both genders
Mm-hmm.
just in this really bad state. So, suicide is
Common.
sadly like a normal occurrence for someone
Mm-hmm.
in this position.
Yeah, it's
And
almost
then,
expected.
yeah, and also depending on what nation you're from or what culture, they also have their own forms of dealing with men who can channel. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're one of the sea folk, they send you off to an island basically to live
Mm-hmm.
out your days with the island of madmen. But there's also men who, once they realize that they can channel, they just pick up and leave to go to the blight and kill as many shadow spawn as they can take out before their madness truly descends on them and then they die. So they kind of go off on these like suicide missions,
Mm-hmm.
basically. The Red Aja was set up to track these men down in the Westlands and basically gentle every single one that they can find.
Mm-hmm.
If you want more information on that, read New Spring. So we've got many different forms of cultures dealing with Saidin, men who can
Mm-hmm.
channel
Mm-hmm.
Saidin. Death and gentling is basically all you can do for the
Mm-hmm.
most part,
Mm-hmm.
or picking up, leaving society, and going somewhere where you can't hurt someone.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you
Hopefully.
go way back into like before the series takes place, we had men who would go and live with the Ogier in their steadings because
Mm-hmm.
being in a steading cuts them off from the one power.
Mm-hmm.
But they found that being in this situation was just as bad, and they couldn't live like this knowing that the source was out there and not being able to touch it.
Mm-hmm.
So they eventually leave the steadings as well. So
Yeah.
no good options for these
Mm-hmm.
men.
Have we talked about madness for them?
I said that they, no.
Because the reason that
Well, when
guy
I
at the
said about the
beginning.
cold open,
Mm-hmm.
like, but
But I
yeah.
mean, that's a side effect for every man who can channel. Like that's part of being able to touch the taint is that the man will also inevitably go mad and either damage himself or everyone around him without intending to do so. So
Yeah,
that's
we did a breaking of the world episode. If you want more information,
mm,
go find that.
yeah, that actually would be a really good one because it talks about like the breaking of the world and the taint and the kickback and the things like that that cause what
Hmm.
causes the madness to happen for men who can channel. That was all.
Indeed.
Yeah.
It's sad that there is no other option. There's nothing palatable. There's
Mhm.
no soft answer to this. It's just if you're a man that can channel, you have nothing else out
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
There aren't healers
Mm-mm.
coming to find you to help. There's nothing.
When men find out that they can channel, like some of the discussions that happen in this show, especially like that moment between Matt and Rand when they see Logain come through the city and he's
Hmm.
already been gentled and people are like throwing things at him, and then he has like his moment of hysterical madness laughing, and Matt's like, please just promise me you will never let me get like that. Like, if
Hmm.
that's ever me, just make sure it's not. And the fear that they have around being able to channel is probably as strong as the fear of possibly being the Dragon Reborn. I'm not sure which one would be worse.
It's the same consequences, really. I mean, you either go mad now or you go mad later.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh, I mostly mean like with the added responsibilities and prophecies and things that come along with being the Dragon Reborn. Like it was actually,
well, yeah, yeah.
it was
In
a
the
little.
show, they sorry, go
No, no,
ahead.
no, that's okay. That's okay. I was just gonna say it was a little tricky for me cutting through some of this stuff to separate the idea of Saidin from the Dragon Reborn. They're not necessarily the same thing, so I wanted to make sure that I didn't like go off into Dragon Reborn land too hard. So consequences. Are there any others that we might be missing?
There's also the impact of just being a social outcast
Mm.
and having
Mm-hmm.
to hide, knowing that this madness is going to come on sometime. You will see men leave their families, leave their
Mm-hmm.
home
Mm-hmm.
before they tell anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just, affecting one person, it's affecting households, I guess, and cities, and all of your ties that you have to the outside world. You kind of just have to let go. But there's also the fact that there are usually more than one faction looking for men that can channel. So if you are not being pursued by the Red Aja,
Mm-hmm.
you might be pursued by someone thinking perhaps you are the Dragon Reborn because you're a man that can channel, and you fall
Mm-hmm.
into this niche timeline, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you could have the Black Aja after you, you could have
Mm-hmm. The Forsaken.
the Forsaken after you,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes these men get killed just
Mm-hmm.
because they can channel, where they think, okay, well, maybe this is someone who fits into the prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it's hinted at being hereditary channeling.
Mm.
So it's possible your dad walks out on you, you don't know why. 15 years later, you realize you might be able to channel. And this does happen to certain characters in the book where
Mm-hmm.
they had an inkling that perhaps they can channel because their father left, or they had seen something happen before their father leaves, where they're like,
Mm-hmm.
as a child, it just like it comes back to them in adulthood where they're like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
It tears apart families basically as
Mm-hmm.
well. So
Yeah.
there's just a lot of really bad consequences for these men. And it's really, I mean, it's kind of like a depressing subject, but at the same time, this is what we're dealt with in the books,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no way around it. And there isn't a form of changing this.
Nope. Nope. Sorry, I'm like, spoilers.
Why would a man channel when he knows what fate may await him when he does?
Mm-hmm.
This goes back to your opening quote from the book,
Mm-hmm.
and it really is something that just sings to this person, where
Mm-hmm.
it calls to them, and it splits between your thoughts to be like, okay, I know this is wrong, I know this will hurt me, I know if I channel that I'll probably go mad sooner than later, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do this, I don't want to do this. But then on the other hand, you have it calling to you,
Yep.
where I don't want to say like it's like a drug, but it's kind of like something that makes you feel whole. It's more like a part of yourself. And without using it, it's almost like you're closing that part of yourself off. This is what we're seeing with Rand. And it's so often that it's described. I've got another quote here from The Great Hunt, and this is from chapter 17. And this is one of the first times that Rand is consciously trying to channel. And he explains it, and he says, it feels like a light to him inside of him, light and heat, and it's suffusing to his limbs, and he likens it to water sinking into dry sand, so it's like filling him, and he feels like he wants more of it, that he needs more of it. And I really like this idea of water sinking into dry sand, because it makes me think of being thirsty and reaching for like a cold glass of water or something and just being refreshed. And at the same time, when he's thinking this, he's also repulsed by it because he feels the taint on Saidin, are we gonna call it the taint or the corruption? The corruption on Saidin.
I have such a hard time not saying taint, and I think it's because I grew up with these books.
Yeah.
And that's what it's always referred to as. So anytime
Spoiler
it's something
alert,
else.
Taint. It's so often described as having like this oily, putrid, like layer of grease.
Yeah, I was just thinking of like a cold glass of water with slime like over the top of it, and in order to get to the water you have to like,
if you're dying of thirst but you see
yeah, I would still do it. Do it, slime and all. I did want to come back to something about like the addictive quality of Saidin. Would you say that even though Saidin has this taint on it, because I know like when young women go to the White Tower, they go to Saidar, or they go to learn how to control Saidar, they are told not to use it very often because they can get too used to it and then they'll just want to touch it all the time. And that can potentially lead to burning yourself out. Yeah. So do you think Saidin has that same quality?
Yeah, but I also think that that's something within the White Tower that they do as like a safety precaution.
Okay.
Because these young girls, I mean, they accidentally start fires. And it's when they're new to using it, of course they want to touch it. Of course they want to learn and explore it. But at the same time, it's dangerous.
Yeah.
So having a teacher is one thing, and that's, great for the White Tower. But if you're a man, you probably don't have a teacher because these men just aren't around.
Everyone has been gentled or killed.
Yeah, exactly. There was a moment in the TV show where I thought that's exactly where it was going to go, where Moraine was going to say, I can't teach you. That's like teaching a fish to fly, or whatever the quote is from the books. But it turns out we get the scene with Ishamael, and he's kind of telling Rand, come to me, I can show you, I can teach you. I'm the only one who can save you.
Did no one tell you what you can do? About the power inside you? You can remake the world in your image. Make it whatever you want it to be. This, if you want. I can show you how.
And it does happen the same way in the books. I had forgotten about it. But
me too, actually.
He was the first one to offer to Rand that he can teach him. It is really important because for the men, they don't have a teacher. I think it also helps that some of these men truly believe that they are the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah, I agree.
So they think like, it's me. I'm allowed to have followers. I should be leading.
Yeah.
And then it, for the most part, never really works out.
No.
They get gentled.
No. And I liked a lot how the show portrayed Logain. I think it's episode 4 where it opens with the battle in Giladon.
Mm-hmm.
And he has that moment where he could very easily have killed the king of Galdon. And instead, he chooses to tell him that he is a dragon who will bind the
Bind the
world,
world.
not break it. And so instead, he chooses a path of mercy and allows the king to live, which turns him into an ally, which gives him an army that's even larger than the one he had before. And when he's being shielded later, like in the books, it says it took 6 full sisters to keep Logain contained and shielded until they could get to the tower. And in the TV show, we have 2 women linked up, channeling, like holding back his power. But they do talk frequently about like how strong he is, how powerful he is. Logain, up until the moment he is gentled, looks like he's just waiting for his next moment of glory.
I like how the TV show visually showed the corruption on Saidin.
So did I.
So Logain has these 2 figures kind of hovering about, and
they're
it looked
like
really cool. It was really one of these interesting, well shot, beautiful CGI moments where I was like, applaud.
Yeah.
But I have to wonder what that means for future male channelers, because there are some that feel like there are spiders under their skin and they're screaming that, you know, they're kind of being like eaten from the inside out. And there are others that see creeping
Fades.
dark shadows. And every male channeler has maybe a different type of symptom of the corruption, where it's not like a one-size-fits-all situation where they just go mad and start talking to themselves.
I think they showed that as well with the way that the first guy they came across, like his madness was in the form of a fully fleshed out man. And for Logain, instead, it comes in like these wispy shapes with like
shadowy figures.
Yes, and there's one on the side who has like a more feminine voice and one on the other side who has a more masculine voice, and they're like talking to him. I find it interesting that he doesn't take their advice. I like it. I thought that was like a nice little touch where like the madness is obviously there, but in a way Logain is aware of it and is like, nah, I got this. So we talked about the consequences. We talked about why would they still channel. And I think it really just comes down to the idea of power and not being able to do jack shit about it. And I think really that's the main one, is that it's just so instinctual. This is something that your body has to do. They can't just make a choice to stop channeling anytime they want to, because that's not how it works. And even if they don't touch Saidin, that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't still go mad. Like, they're still connected to it. Touching it just means that it could happen faster. Even if you had like the most amazing self-control ever, you would still eventually touch the one power. I just want people to understand, like, they can't help themselves. They can't help themselves. It's a situation to be like pitied in so many ways.
I'm just curious, people that are watching, if you were in the third age and this was a time you were living in, what would you do? What would you propose? How would you try and fix this? How, you know, is there a way?
Is there an organization out there? Mad People for Male Channelers? That is a really good question. It really is, because it just 300 years versus 3,000 years since the breaking, like that's the whole effort you put into
3,000 years. 3,000 years since men start going mad and you just kind of give up.
Yeah, it's like you found this solution and decided, well, I guess that's good enough. That's just where we're going to leave it for now. And that seems really shitty. last question. Can a man who can channel ever be safe?
No. No, they can't. Unless there's a advance in healing.
Mhm.
No.
But it seems as though like every
Most of-
nation is
Yeah.
totally against the idea of doing anything gentle, compassionate, which is funny considering the term is called gentling.
Well, that's a PR. That's a White Tower PR
Yeah.
thing. We're going to gentle you.
Anyone buying that?
Are you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah, before I say something that's accidentally
Yeah.
extra stupid. Do we know what we're talking about next week? Do you have any ideas?
I'm feeling interested in the Shan Chen.
Ooh. You want to talk about the
Maybe.
Shan Chen next week?
Yeah.
Okay. Next week, Shan Chen. Thanks for joining us. Oh, like and subscribe and stuff?
And stuff?
And stuff? Can you tell how confident I am about this?